Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 704 High School Highlight Podcast. My name is Jeff Taylor. I'm the sports director here at Bahakel Sports, and today we are blessed to be joined by Ericia Turner, who is the CMS Athletic Director or Executive Director of Athletics. I always get it confused. Either one?
Either one.
Either one works. Well, thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you.
And thank you for all you do for our schools.
Thank you.
I know you're a blessing to all of them, and so thank you so much. So before we get into all of it, let's just talk a little bit about your journey.
Okay.
Doing a little research and stuff, I understand. So played high school ball here in Carolina.
Yes, I played at Bandy's High School. I'm from Catawba County. I went to, I live in Sherrills Ford, and I still live there. I live across the street from the house that I grew up in. My mom is still there, and I bought the house across the street. So
Wow.
I am a resident of Catawba County. Went to Bandy's High School and graduated from there in 1990.
Talk to me a little bit about the high school journey and what it was like playing high school sports.
Wow, it was awesome. When I was in high school, I won back-to-back state championships. Mike Matheson was my coach, and so my freshman and sophomore year, we won back-to-back state champions, and we beat Clinton. We played Clinton High School both years in a row, and so then my junior and senior year, we made it 2 games away from the state my junior year and 1 game away from the state my senior year, but we didn't win my junior and senior year. But it was an awesome journey to play for Mike Matheson, who's a legend in the state of North Carolina. And our boys coach at the time was Bill Bost. And then Mike went over to the boys team. My senior year, I was a little salty about that. But I still had a wonderful, my JV coach moved up, and she was my varsity coach my senior year. So, you know, I had a great time at Bandy's High School.
State title.
Yeah, 2 of them.
Now,
Yeah.
did they give rings back then? I know we didn't get rings back then.
So, yes, we did get a ring 1 year,
All right.
and then the next year the team voted we didn't want a second ring, so we got a nugget, a gold
There
nugget
we
with a
go.
basketball
Awesome.
on a chain. And so, yeah, that was awesome.
So from there, it was off to Chapel Hill, I believe,
Yes,
for a couple of years.
I got a full scholarship to go play basketball in Chapel Hill. The experience was mediocre at best, and so I played 2 years in Chapel Hill, and then I transferred to North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro and played another 2 years. At that time, we didn't have the transfer portal like we have now.
Right.
So because I transferred from one D1 to another D1 school, I had to sit out a year.
Right.
So that first year I did sit out, and then I played 2 years, and I was part of the team that won the first, we won the MEAC, but we got the first automatic bid for the MEAC to the NCAA tournament. And we had to play Tennessee our first year. We was ranked number 64, and they were ranked number 1, and that was interesting.
An experience?
It
What
was
an
an
experience.
experience. It was, and we could say we was the first
Right.
MEAC. That's all we can say right now.
Now, was that with Pat Summitt then?
Yes,
Tennessee?
Pat Summitt
Got it.
was with Tennessee.
To be on the same court with somebody like that, even though she was coaching, what was that like?
It was a surreal experience because the young ladies were like robots. And so, you have a lot of trash talk when you're playing ball. They didn't say a word. They just kind of looked at you.
Did their business.
Yes, and I remember when they called the starting lineups out, they called the guards first from both teams. And I was a 4 and a 5. Their 4 and 5 looked like they were 7 feet. I looked like their guards were my height. Let me
Right.
put it that way.
Right.
And so we were already starstruck. I remember when we went out to warm up, the stadium or the Coliseum area was empty. When we went back into the locker room, we come back out, all you saw was 10,000 orange T-shirts up in the stands, and we were like, oh my goodness. So it was a surreal thing, and they were very disciplined,
Right.
well-coached team, and it wasn't a lot of talk out there on the court. They was just down to business.
Got it. Wow. And we'll talk about the transfer portal in a minute, but was it interesting going from high school where, and I think a lot of kids, they're superstars in high school, and they get the D1 scholarships, and you get to that school, and is there a moment where you go, okay, I'm not the big fish anymore?
Yeah, immediately.
Immediately?
When you hit that campus. In Catawba County, I was one of the tallest ladies in Catawba County. I was 6 feet tall. When I got to Carolina, 6'7", 6'5", 6'4", 6'3", 6'2". So I immediately went from a 5 to a 3,
Right.
automatic. I never played the 3 position in high school, so I was already at a disadvantage. So I played 3, and then I played some at the 4. When I went to North Carolina A&T, I played 3, 4, and 5 because that was a smaller D1.
Right.
Still D1, but it was a smaller D1 school, and so the height really wasn't a difference. When I got to the MEAC, but the ACC, yes, guards were my size, and I wasn't used to that. So a lot of people, I tell the kids, it's not about physically, it's about being able mentally to be able to survive when you go to D1 schools. And I think a lot of times we set our students up for failure, thinking that they're better than what they are, they don't work like they used to. They don't work out like they used to. They just want to go. And then when they get there, they realize you got to have that mentality to be able to stay there.
Because I remember, so I played Division III football, and I just remember what a blessing it was just to be out there and play college football. But of course, when I played Division III, there were no cut. You just were basically on the team, which was an awesome experience. So let me ask you this. So done with college, what kind of was education, was that always in the back of your mind in terms of what you wanted to do?
So I probably changed my major 3 times. I think people go through that a lot when
3
they're
or
in
4,
college.
like they do jobs now.
Yes. I started out wanting to be a physical therapist.
Okay.
And then I said, well, maybe elementary education. And then I settled on physical education. But it changed about 3 times. And so I was working with the Boys and Girls Club when I was at Carolina, and I enjoyed working with the kids then. And so I knew I wanted to be in education at that point. And so it just naturally transferred to physical education when I wanted to get into coaching and things of that nature. But PE is more than just about the sports, though. I want to make that clear. It wasn't just about.
Absolutely.
But it was a natural progression for me, a natural transition, because I wanted to coach. And so I first started out coaching at T.W. Andrews High School in High Point. I coached a JV team, and Sue Sheehan, who's also a well-known women's basketball coach in North Carolina, was the varsity coach. And so I started out there and teaching at T.W. Andrews High School. After that first year, I was like, oh, no, I can't do this. The kids were it was to the point where I was like, no, I'm going to go to jail. So
I'm going to get in trouble real quick.
Yeah, so I better do something different. So I went and I stopped teaching after my first year, and I went to work with adults who had cerebral palsy. And I became their job coach. And I did that for 3 years, and then I went back into the education world, and I started in 1999 at Parkland High School. And I was the girls basketball coach, and I started teaching PE at that point.
Now, something fun we talked about before the podcast started. So, basketball, but you were also asked to coach the wide receivers on the football team, correct?
Yes.
How did that come about?
So tragically, when I was at Andrews High School, I had twins, and one of my twins passed away while I was there. He died of SIDS in a daycare. Matter of fact, tomorrow will be the 23rd anniversary of his passing.
Well, praise for you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Praise
thank
for
you.
you tomorrow.
I was real close to the football coach and the coaching staff, and I remember Coach D'Angelo Bell. He came to me that year after, it was 2001, my baby passed in 2000, and said, hey, I like the way you coach. I like the discipline that you have with your girls basketball team. If you can coach the fast break, you can coach my wide receivers. I said, excuse me? He said, I need you to come and coach my wide receivers. I need you to coach the wideouts. I said, sir, I've never played football. He said, if you can coach the fast break, and you can coach the fast break, he said, then you can coach wide receivers. I said, okay, I'm never backing down from a challenge. That's the competitor in me.
Right.
And so that summer, I went out with the quarterback, and I ran the wide receiver route so I could learn them. I worked with the offensive coordinator. We had a no-huddle offense, and so I worked with the offensive coordinator to learn the signals. And so during the JV games, the varsity coach would be up in the stands. He was really calling the plays from the stands. I had on headsets, but I was doing the signals, so people thought I was calling the plays. So that was interesting, and I had a great time. And we won the state championship that year. I only coached that 1 year because emotionally it was still tough for me. I was still grieving the loss of my son, and so I just needed to move back closer to home.
Right.
And so I did it 1 year, and I enjoyed every minute of coaching the football team. Young girls was wanting my autograph. I got mic'd in practice one time from the local news station. They followed me around practice to see if I really knew what I was talking about. But it was fun. I enjoyed it and got a state championship ring out of it. But after that 1 year, I needed to move closer back to my family, and I did that, and I ended up at Independence High School teaching PE and coaching girls basketball at Independence.
Yeah. So when we think about basketball and football, at the end of the day, I mean, when we get to the core of coaching, is it really all the same in terms of when you think about maybe the mentality of how to coach?
Yeah, skill breakdown, being able to teach and coach and break down the skills. You don't necessarily have to be able to play it in order to be able to break down the skills. I know a lot of great players who can't teach the sport.
Right.
And so a lot of times coaching, great teachers make the best coaches because they're able to break it down and teach the kids and lead by example. I ran those wide receiver routes. I ran the drills with the kids, and so I was able to show them. So a lot of great players can be great on the court or on the field, but if you can't break down the skills and teach it, then it doesn't work. And I think you can learn skill development in any sport if you're passionate about it. And in PE, when you were a physical education major, you had to learn to break the skills down for every sport.
Right. So from there, teaching and stuff eventually led to being principal
Yes.
at a couple of schools, correct?
A couple of schools. So when I left Independence, I went to Mallard Creek. I opened up Mallard Creek as the first basketball coach there, but I also did my principal internship at Mallard Creek at the time. I did that 2 years, and then after I finished my degree, I wanted to put it to work. And so at that time, they were doing a lot of cutting positions of assistant principals because of budget cuts back in 2008. So I went back home, and I went to Newton Conover, and my first administrative job was assistant principal / athletic director. So that was my first dab into being an AD. So I did that 3 years, and then I went to Alamance Burlington School System, and I was the first director of athletics for Alamance Burlington School System. For some family reasons, had to move back home to help my mother at that time, so I became an administrator in Iredell Statesville. I was an assistant principal at Statesville High, and then I moved to the principalship at Statesville Middle School. Did that for 2 years, and then made my way back to CMS in 2016 as the principal of Rocky River High School. And then in 2021, here I am as the executive director of athletics for CMS.
Wow. Awesome journey.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So in terms of did they approach you about the athletic director job with CMS, and what was your mentality with that? Were there certain things that you wanted to see done in terms of CMS athletics, and what kind of, when they approached you, what was your kind of mentality with taking on that role?
Right, and so I was having the time of my life at Rocky River High School, and so at that point, because I just loved being around kids,
right.
And so I thought about it years ago and said if I ever had the opportunity, I would love to be the director of athletics in CMS, because athletics is a passion of mine. But at the same time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Rocky River was we were on our way up. We had made some strides in the 5 years I was there, and we were just enjoying ourselves, especially coming out of COVID. And so I had mixed feelings when I was approached about considering the position. And I think I said no about 2 or 3 times before I finally said, okay, I'll give it a try. But I think my first 2 months in this role, I was borderline depressed because I missed my kids so much at Rocky River.
Right.
Because you get into district office, now you're dealing with adults more so than kids. But my mentality was I knew I could come in and make a change. That's kind of been the legacy of my leadership journey. It's not about being successful, it's about being impactful.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure I leave it better than I found it, right? And I think at one point I realized, okay, you've taken Rocky River as far as you can probably take them. And so I equate my leadership journey as like the starting pitcher and the closing pitcher. I'm that starting pitcher, and somebody has to come in and be the closing pitcher. So I can build you that basic foundation. I'm going to leave a job better than I found it always, because that's just who I am as a person. And so I feel the same way. I can come in and make an immediate impact because of my experience in athletics and academics. And so I decided to take the challenge.
So as you were almost done with this school year, how would you sum up the school year in terms of athletics for CMS? And then during the summer, do you kind of, shift your focus and pick new things to look toward? Mm-hmm. Or is it just kind of a fluid thing from year to year?
So really, I start planning for the next school year in January. So I've already started thinking about what I want to do next year, because if I wait till during the summer, it's too late. I think in the last 2 years, this is closing out my second year as the director of athletics, or the executive director of athletics. We've certainly changed the culture. We are still changing the culture, and we still have a ways to go. So it's my desire to show athletics in the light of educational-based athletics. It's not just about the competition. It's not just about the X's and O's. There's so many things that the kids can benefit from about being part of an athletic team. And if it wasn't for my teammates, I think about my teammates in college when I lost my son, and I'm still close to my teammates, especially at A&T, and I'm still in contact with some of my teammates at Carolina. And if I needed anything right now to this day, I could call any one of my teammates and they're going to be there. And you can't take that away. Regardless of how many championships you win, that's something that you'll never be able to take away. And you don't forget those. Those are lasting memories that I've gotten from being a part of a team. And I need our kids to understand it's not always about winning. Everybody's not wanting to go to college and play a sport,
right,
but they still want to be part of that sport. I mean, it's a small percentage of kids that go, and especially a smaller percentage that go to Division I.
Right.
And I think we set our kids up for failure when we tell them that's the only way.
Right.
And so I don't want to do that. I want to use athletics as a way to open up different avenues for our student athletes.
And I think I've seen a shift. I've been around, I've been in Charlotte for, 24 years now, and I've had 3 kids go through CMS and 2 have played sports. And what I have noticed is this shift toward the education part. Back, when I played ball in '86 and stuff like that, and, I know that if you wanted to go to college or you wanted to pass a class, there were certain things that coaches would kind of do that weren't right. But I have really noticed over the last few years, especially in CMS, I've heard a football coach talk to my son and players on that team, and the conversation from the get-go has been, let's talk about grades. Because before we even start summer practice, I looked at your grades from last year, and I've seen them pull kids aside and go, it's either this or this. So, kudos for that, because I have seen that. And along those lines, what was really cool, and we'll talk about it a little bit because I do have some video I can put up here on the podcast, was the gala from the other night, the CMS All-Star Gala, which when I realized was all put together by the Student Advisory
Student Athletic.
SAAC.
Yeah, the Student Athletic Advisory Council. So how'd
that come about?
So that's one of the things that I wanted to do. That was my way of getting back connected with the students. And we wanna keep it. Our focus is the student athlete, right? And so we need to keep our focus on the students. And I started one when I was in Alamance County. And so I said, I have a goal to start a student athlete advisory council in CMS. And I wanted a male and female athlete from each high school to be represented. And once you start giving students power and empowering them to lead, amazing things happen.
Absolutely.
And so you just sprinkle little things here and there. And it started out with a leadership summit that they did in the fall at Carowinds. They did one last year and they did one this year. And they were thinking about, well, what can we do in the spring? And originally it was going to be another leadership summit in the spring because, everybody didn't make it to the fall one. But then they said, you know what, let's do something different and let's do a gala. And so I have some ladies in the background helping me with that. Miss Tamara Satterfield, the counselor at Chambers, and Miss Patricia Barnes-Parkins, the AD at Philip O'Berry. They're helping me in the background. And they said, Miss Turner, do you think we can do it in 4 months? I said, for our students, anything is possible in 4 months. I said, we just have to do it. And so we put them in charge of everything. And they emailed the sponsors. Next thing I know, we had $20,000 in sponsorships coming just for that gala. So they put all the work into it. They got their MC. They ordered the awards. They wrote up they wrote on what we was a script is what I'm trying to say. They had a script on what I was supposed to say whenever we announced the awards. They did, when I tell you they did everything, all I had to do was put a dress on and show up. And I was so excited for them because they felt so accomplished from that. They had a meeting last night, an interest meeting, and more kids showed up to be a part. And so that's what it's about. So if you would have come to the fall summit, it wasn't about sports. It was about financial literacy. They had a financial literacy workshop that was sponsored by Truist Bank. They had a young lady come to talk about mentorships. They had people from the college life to talk about what it's like as a student athlete in college and the recruitment process. It really wasn't about X's and O's. It was amazing. Scott Clark has offered internships. I think we have 25 students in their internship program right now at Scott Clark Toyota. So it has been amazing for our student. Our leader, Jonathan Birch, is a Rhodes Scholar now. So he'll be going on a Rhodes Scholarship. And he's a swimmer at Butler. And so
I sat with him at the table.
Amazing.
And just the conversation, even when we interviewed him for our story right off the bat, I was like, wow. But then I sat there and talked to him for a little while at our table and was even more blown away. And the interesting part is, sometimes people think high school kids leading something, it'll be kind of halfway. And this kid went 100% because there were a couple glitches and I could see him going. I think at one point he got up, went to the back to figure out what was going on. So to see that kind of role is fantastic. Let me ask you this. So when we talk about high school athletics, we a lot of times get the tunnel vision of football and basketball and maybe baseball when there are so many other things out there. In your position, how do you kind of make sure everybody's kind of taken care of? And one of the coolest things for me has been seeing the new flag football. I think all but one school is participating, which is amazing. But how do you kind of make sure that everything's kind of equally, taken care of and maybe covered and stuff like that?
So first of all, it's my responsibility to make sure that equity is there,
Got
that
it.
we're doing it. But I love sports in general, so I show up at everything visibility. So I'm gonna be at a tennis match. You'll see me at a baseball, and I just randomly pick schools to go to, and I just kind of show up.
Show up.
Some people know who I am, and some people don't. I just stand in the corner and take pictures because I love to see the kids compete.
Right.
If I see there's a need, then I make sure I take care of it. So right now, I see there's a need to build up our softball programs because softball is falling off for the girls' sports. Girls' basketball, really, a lot of teams don't have JV girls basketball. I work with the city councilman Malcolm Graham. He has a tennis tournament that he does in memory of his sister. Some of our kids participated and volunteered in that. So we have a young lady that's going to be at Wells Fargo for the golf tournament and get to participate in some sort of fashion at the Wells Fargo golf tournament tomorrow and be part of that. And so I think it's important that you shed light on all sports, right? And I even gotten some phone calls about lacrosse. Lacrosse is a little different because it's a little bit more expensive.
Right.
And some people just don't have the interest. It's not that we don't want to do it.
Right.
It's just that there's not an interest in some schools for lacrosse. We're trying to build up swimming, especially in our minority schools, because I think it's important that they know how to swim. It's not about winning. If I can get somebody to come in and teach you how to swim, then I'm good, because I think everybody needs to know how to swim. And so, so we just, CMS is such a large school district. You just gotta, I realize I'm trying to do too much at one time sometimes. So I gotta compartmentalize, but all sports are important, and it's my job to make sure that the equity is there. And so it just takes a little longer to build other sports and to create different opportunities. Flag football was awesome. I didn't know that we were going to have that many kids. I think one school had 116 girls to try out the first year. So I did not know it was going to fly like that. But I think the kicker for us was when we did a promotional video and it came out on National Girls and Women in Sports Day. So that was intentional. And then I started getting phone calls from everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I didn't even know that we had adult leagues in Charlotte until then. And so they came out and they spoke to the girls. And I think we had a young lady that was at Huff last year who got offered a scholarship to go play in Florida, flag football on the college level.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yes, it does exist on the college level. And so the whole goal is to get it sanctioned. But whether it's sanctioned in North Carolina or not, it's been big for our kids in Charlotte, and we're going to keep it going.
I was amazed. I think it was the day Olympic high school where they had all the teams. And I walked out there going, okay, there'll be some fans here and there. And I walked out and I was like, what is going on? And I sat out there and watched it. And I was like, the intensity was crazy.
Yes.
And it was just so cool to watch them and just get so excited about it. And so cool, awesome. So let me throw two more subjects at you.
Okay.
And I've talked to some high school coaches and some high school players, and and people who've watched the podcast know how I feel about a couple things. So the transfer portal, I don't like it because I feel like it's hurt the kids who have a chance to go. I think it's taken away the opportunity for kids to go play sports in college who might have the opportunity. But now as I'm a college coach, I'm grabbing this kid who's played for a year or two in college, and I'm not going to take the high school kid. Do you feel like it's kind of hurt?
Absolutely. So I'm a parent too. So my son plays football, and we talked about that.
I was out there parent night, I think, senior night at Rocky River.
And we talked about that during the recruiting process, and it did impact him in sort of a way, but we were blessed. I said, but it's still Johnson C. Smith's package and the way they recruited him and made it personal for him, and the head coach went to talk to him, and the family feel it was easy for us. But unfortunately for other student athletes, it is a tough decision. But I let him go take all of his visits. And I needed him to understand. I needed him to understand the difference. And I won't name a school, but in a particular school, they were taking a lot of kids in the transfer portal. And the head coach said that. He said about 40% of our incoming class will be from the transfer portal. And I said, son, this is not where we want to be. Right? I said, because the focus is on the transfer portal, and I needed him to understand that. Whereas you go to other schools and they'll say, hey, we're only going to take one or two from the transfer portal. The rest of them we're going to build from our freshman class. And that says a lot. So it does hurt a lot of the kids. It cuts down on the options that they have. But we were blessed, and so I'm excited about that. But I did have to, it was disappointing for some of our seniors to listen to the confusion for the parents who don't understand the process. It is kind of disheartening, and people waiting we're going to wait, we're going to hold out. I'm thinking, no, but I wouldn't hold out if I was you.
You need to
I'm
go.
If somebody's offering you some money, I'm going to need you to go ahead and sign that. Or go ahead and accept it verbally anyway. Nothing is final until you sign that piece of paper. But you need to have a verbal commitment on the table, because when that transfer portal opens, the floodgates
Game
are
on.
going to, yeah. And so a lot of kids miss out on that. And the other thing that sets kids apart is that GPA.
Right.
Right? And so now you need that high GPA. So there is no question. You know, you're incoming fresh, and, you know, I'm grateful that my son has a 3.5 GPA. I said that makes all the difference in the world, son. Whenever you're getting recruited, that's the first thing that they're going to look at. Unfortunately, you have a lot of kids who have the talent, but you're sitting at a 2.3.
Right.
And that kid in the transfer portal got a 3.7 or a 3.8 or.
And not only the transfer portal, but I've seen it just in like schools itself accepting kids. Like this year's senior class, I know for like, you know, the University of Tennessee had so many kids who maybe took a gap year off because of COVID and stuff, and now they're coming in or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just been kind of crazy all the way
Yeah.
around. So, and I've talked to, I talked to a couple kids. My kids go to Providence, and I know there are a couple kids there that could have probably easily played Division One, but it just, they had coaches tell them, hey.
But I will tell you this, I think it's been great for the D2 and D3 leagues.
Well, that's, and I played Division Three.
Yeah,
Like I said,
yeah.
I played Division Three, and for me, I can still tell people, hey, I played college football.
Right.
At the end of the
Right.
day, you're playing college football.
Right.
And my experience was probably, I wasn't, you know, it wasn't 24/7 every day, all year long. You know what I'm getting at? I mean, it was the fall, and then you
Yeah.
worked out some, but it wasn't what it was.
Right.
So, okay, along those lines, another thing that I've kind of struggled with in terms of seeing high school kids and even the college kids is the NIL. You know, there are kids who are getting it, who I get it, I understand it, but they haven't proven anything
Right.
in terms of, you know, and so I'm not a big fan of it. And now the thought of, you know, there's, I don't know however many states now have said, hey, high schoolers can get it. I don't think we have it in North Carolina.
No,
correct?
and there's a committee, they put together a committee, because Steve is on that committee as well, to start discussing that, but it has not reached North Carolina yet, but it's coming.
So your thoughts on it?
I don't like it. I think it's messing the kids up. I think it's messing up college too as well. And I know of a former student of mine that I had in middle school that had all these NIL deals, but he hasn't played. I haven't seen him play in college, but he has an NIL deal, and so he's not playing anymore. So when that runs out, then what?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They still have to have something to fall back on. There's nothing, they need to get that degree. And I think we entice the kids with money, especially those kids who probably struggled growing up. That, of course, I can help my family. I can help my family pay some bills. That's what they're
Right.
looking at. But I think we need to educate our students about sustaining, you know, because that
Agreed.
money's going to run out one day.
And for me, you know, it's like there's the NIL deal, and then there's also we're going to give you a full ride. Pick one. Like, I
Right.
mean, it's like if they're giving you the NIL money, then you can go ahead and take care of your college.
Right.
Because the scholarship money could go elsewhere.
Right.
And that's where I struggle with it. So
And I saw something, I posted Angel Reese about Angel Reese from LSU. She talked about she's making more money in an NIL deal than she would ever make playing in the WNBA. Something to think about.
It does. And
So-
what bothers me as a dad who's had 3 kids and I played high school and stuff like that is just taking away some of the purity
Yeah.
as you get to the senior year and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just a fine line we all got to walk. So let's wrap up with this. Obviously, with us here at Bahakel Sports
Mm-hmm.
and our relationship with you guys, and you know, becoming your home for high school sports, I know it's been just a great thing for us.
Mm-hmm.
Our relationship with CMS and trying to tell the stories and be at the games and start building a culture that we are trying to be your home for high school sports. Just talk about the relationship we've had with you guys.
Oh, it's been great. I think it's awesome because it helps change the culture, so people can see it, see the difference. It's not just talk. You see it in action. Getting the positive stories out. People like to focus on the negative all the time, and I am people will tell you that I'm afraid to talk to news reporters.
You've done good every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Well, I'm not the most politically correct person, and if the wrong question comes up, I might be
Game
in trouble.
on.
Yeah,
I'd rather be honest though.
yeah. So, but I believe that there are more positive stories out there than negative stories,
Right.
and I believe that for our students' sake, that we need to focus on the positive to encourage them to do well, because if all they see is the negative, then that's what you're going to get from them, and so. I choose to focus on the positive. I choose to focus on the glass half full. And we have many kids, many coaches, many teachers doing the right thing. We have more of those doing the right thing than doing the wrong thing. But most people want to only focus on the negative. And I think if we can create that narrative for our students, they can't do anything but be successful. And it's my goal is to create that positive narrative to let them know that you can be anything you want to be when you leave. And my experience losing a child in somebody else's care is kind of my motivation. My child died in daycare. So and when I approach my job, I have thousands of other people's children in my care. That's real for me. That's not politics. And I know that in an instant, their life can be taken away and you can't get that back.
Right.
And so I move a little bit different because it has nothing to do with all the degrees that I have. And just to watch that light bulb come off, even for my own child. And my own children, I have an older one that's in college. He's at CVCC. He was part of esports. He can build you a computer from scratch right now. He's 6'4", 275. He looked like an athlete, but he's not an athlete. So, and my youngest son, to watch him grow as a student and come to within his own, the confidence he has being part of a sports team. And he wasn't one of your Power 5 players. He wasn't one that was always in the spotlight. But he come to work every day, and he has a great work ethic, and he's around people who supported him not only as a player but as a young man. And to watch his growth has been short of amazing, and that's what I like to see in our student athletes. And it's my job to create those opportunities for our student athletes, and it helps to help some coaches along the way, some adults. It's about integrity, because at the end of the day, when we had those students when we had to forfeit those games last year, it was bad for people, but at the end of the day, it was worse for the kids.
Erica Turner, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do for
Thank
our
you.
kids. Good luck the rest of this year and next year and years beyond.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you guys for checking us out. And as always, follow us, like us, comment, however you do it, whatever you do to watch your podcast or listen to them. Make sure you check out the 704 High School Highlight Podcast, and we will see you next time.